Hey guys, welcome back to yet some more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and all that kind of stuff. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Reddit content, and as usual, let's get into today's stories. Neighbor is mad that the firefighters won't let her direct traffic. There was a minor car accident behind my building, nothing super serious. An ambulance was called, but no one ended up leaving in it. Everyone was shaken up, but walked away bruised, thankfully. However, the way the cars ended up, they took up about 3/4 of the road. Other cars could still get past them, but had to go slowly. Thankfully, it's really not a busy road at all. In comes my neighbor. Her entrance is on the other side of the building, so I don't really interact with her, thankfully, but I've seen her around. Well, for some reason unknown to me or anyone else, she went down into the middle of the road and stood there, telling anyone coming out to watch exactly what happened. Which wasn't a whole lot, as she herself didn't really know what happened. Her explanation really boiled down to, there was an accident, I heard it from my living room. And then proceeding to describe the sounds she heard. Thanks, we totally wouldn't have parsed that out ourselves. Then a car came down the road. She stopped the car and had him roll down his window, just to explain to him that there was a car accident. Then she stepped aside and let him pass. She did this with a total of 3 cars. I mean, it was pretty obvious there was a car accident. There was an ambulance and a fire truck and a couple police cars. Oh, and 2 cars sharing a single bumper. Doesn't really take a genius. After the 3rd car, one of the firefighters finally took notice of this little old lady in the middle of the road stopping cars. He went over to her and told her something very quietly. She immediately looked offended and said, "But I'm helping." This guy had the patience of a kindergarten teacher, but ended up raising his voice. He was walking away at that point, so was kind of yelling back to her. "You're at risk of being struck by a motor vehicle, ma'am. Please get out of the street." Old neighbor lady stands there for just a bit, then all in a huff says, "You're welcome." Then she shuffles to the sidewalk and watches them continue to work. She repeats, "You're welcome," a lot louder. At this point, all of the neighbors are staring at her. She goes back to her patio and once again yells, "You're welcome," then slams her patio door. It's been a full day and I still have not wrapped my head around what exactly she thought they should be thankful to her for, or what she thought she was doing to help exactly. Left behind on Alcatraz, charged with trespassing on federal property. I recently took a trip to Alcatraz for the first time. At no point in time was I made aware or informed by any staff member that the island closes at 4 p.m. sharp and the last ferry goes out for the night. The only area where that info is posted to inform you is on a small sign nearby the entrance of the island where everyone crowds around and congregates as they're immediately leaving the ferry. The sign is very small and lower than waist height, not possible to be easily seen amongst a crowd of people. Apart from that, no staff member from the ferry nor rangers on the island ever mentioned or informed anyone that they must be out by 4 or they'll be left behind. So naturally, I'm walking around checking out the island when I realize that nobody is there at all and something seems off. I check the time and it's 4:30. I head back to the front of the island only to realize that the island is now closed. Everyone is gone and I have no way of getting back. Apparently, they did a walk of the whole island to sweep everyone off for the night, yet somehow they missed me. They also made an announcement over a loudspeaker that I was too far out of range to hear. So yet again, they failed to properly inform their guests and failed to do a proper sweep to make sure nobody was left behind. Upon realizing I'm stuck here with no way out, I frantically search for a number to call anyone who works for the island or the ferry service. There was absolutely nothing posted. So I resort to calling the Coast Guard and police to inform them that I got left behind and I'm now stuck on the island and can't get off, in an effort to hope that maybe they can help me. They inform me that yes, I'm not supposed to be there, but as long as I stay seated at the docks that I should be okay, and they won't ticket me. Fast forward to 8 or 9 p.m., I'm still on the island, just barely getting picked up by a water ferry, who drops off the night security guard. They drop me off at the docks back in San Francisco, where 2 officers are waiting. They, quote, investigate me by asking a series of questions like where was I, what was I doing, etc. I answer everything truthfully and honestly because it was a true mistake. I had been left there and had no desire to be there. Yet they still end up giving me a $130 ticket for trespassing on federal property. A boomer was sitting inside a tent while me and other citizens were attending the community meeting to vote on various town-related issues. It was my first time going to this town meeting. It's basically only for people that are Swiss citizens and that live in the community. The meeting was located in the music room of the local school building, and there were about 50 people attending. When I went inside, I saw this weird tent that looked like it was made for mosquitoes. Inside, there was someone sitting on a stool, but you could only see a silhouette. I found this odd, but thought to myself that perhaps he was in charge of counting the votes and had to keep himself hidden. The session lasted for several hours, and I would glance at the person inside the tent occasionally. But since everyone was chill with it, I assumed that he must be a normal attendant. At the end, anyone could go to the podium and talk about a topic for 5 minutes. This was when everyone heard the guy inside the tent move. He opened a small curtain. When he came out, I could see that he was around 70 years old, and he reacted as if he was a vampire in the sunlight once he stepped out of the tent. The dude walked to the podium really quickly and started profusely sweating. I thought he was going to pass out. Then a 5-minute rant about 5G towers, how wireless activity was destroying his health, and that he even asked to turn off the Wi-Fi routers in that room we were in, but was denied. He was emotionally going nuts, speaking loudly and citing pseudoscientific crap about how 5G towers were causing him health issues. He then finished the speech by asking us to vote on banning 5G towers in our community. At the end, he walked to his tent, stayed inside a bit, and then quickly dismantled it and ran outside. The vote didn't pass. I then asked around, and he goes to every meeting like this since COVID started. Reporting my boss after he forced me to attend a meeting despite knowing I was in labor. I, 28 female, have been working at my company for 5 years, and until recently I loved my job. I was 8 months pregnant when this happened, about a month ago, so I started having contractions while at work. Since I was not due yet, I thought it was just Braxton Hicks because they weren't that intense. Just a week before that, I had experienced Braxton Hicks and went to the hospital, but it was a false alarm. This time I was still working when the contractions started in the morning, and again I thought it was Braxton Hicks. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I tried to keep working. Last time I went to the hospital, my boss, John, 45 male, made sarcastic comments about me being overly dramatic and joked about how I should schedule my labor around important meetings. I have social anxiety and tend to take people's crap without pushing back, so I just took it. By noon, the contractions were getting stronger and closer together, and I knew it was real labor. I needed to go to the hospital. I informed John that I was in labor and needed to leave. He rolled his eyes and said, "Just stay for the meeting at 1 p.m. It's crucial and we need you there." I was stunned. I reiterated that I was in active labor and needed to go to the hospital immediately. John snapped back, "It's just a meeting. Sit through it and then you can go. It's not like the baby is going to pop out right now." Feeling pressured and scared for my job, I reluctantly stayed. The meeting lasted an excruciating 2 hours. By the end of it, I was in so much pain that I could barely walk. I finally left and drove myself to the hospital, where I was admitted immediately. My husband reached 30 to 40 minutes later because he was on the other side of town for a meeting. My daughter was born later that evening, thankfully healthy despite the delay. When I told my husband what had happened, he was furious and insisted we report John to HR. I was hesitant because I didn't want to jeopardize my job, but I agreed it was the right thing to do. HR was appalled and assured me they would handle the situation. John has since been suspended pending an investigation. The real kicker? During the investigation, it came out that John had emailed the entire office while I was in labor, complaining about my lack of commitment and making fun of me for overreacting. He even implied that I was using my pregnancy as an excuse to get out of work. I've even received messages and emails from a few colleagues saying that I've ruined John's career and that he was just doing his job under pressure. One even said that I should have toughed it out like their wife did during her pregnancy. The stress from this whole ordeal has made it difficult to enjoy my first few days with my newborn. I'm constantly second-guessing myself and feeling guilty, despite knowing I did what was best for my baby and me. It was definitely the right thing to report that manager to HR. And I don't think OP should pay too much mind to the coworkers that are guilting her for doing what she did. I do want to believe that those few people are in the minority. And if they were actually sending these things to OP through email, then she also might want to take these to HR as well. Man annoys tourists. Then it gets really weird. We were at the Grand Canyon South Rim a few days ago. Around 4 p.m. we grabbed a drink at the beer garden right on the rim. There was a group of Italian tourists, young adults, having a good time after their hike. An older guy sitting alone inserts himself into the conversation, to which they were very accommodating and polite, but eventually he just wouldn't shut up and kept talking about himself and spouting Italian stereotypes. They eventually start filing out of the restaurant, likely to just get away, because he was a bit drunk and obnoxious. Just after they left, my wife looked at me with huge eyes, getting my attention to what was happening. This guy takes an empty beer cup, unzips, then proceeds to take a piss while seated in the middle of this outdoor cafe. There's a large window just next to him with a restaurant of seated patrons overlooking him as well. A minute later, a manager comes flying out of the restaurant door and grabs the bartender to explain what is going down. I took that as my cue and we got up to leave, noting that there is now 2 cups on his table, a new cold beer and a warm used beer. Part of me wishes I stuck around to see how ugly it got, or if he was even arrested. But I was in vacation mode at the time and had no patience to deal with crazy crap that day. Man stopped me on the street to berate me for drinking in public. It was barbecue sauce. Made myself a nice batch of pulled pork last night. So on my way to pick up my child from school yesterday, I stopped at the grocery store to pick up some barbecue sauce. I didn't want to bother with a bag for a single bottle of barbecue sauce, so I was holding it in my hand as I walked to the school. Enter old man walking his dog. I see him coming from down the sidewalk and think nothing of him until he gets close to me and I realize he's speaking. I take out my earbud only to be greeted with him ranting at me. "You should be ashamed of yourself. This is a school area and children shouldn't be seeing that." Very confused, I say, "Excuse me?" "Put the booze away. I can't believe how okay with looking trashy some of you people are. At least wait until you get home, for crying out loud." Still just confused, I say, It's barbecue sauce." The guy looks again at what is very obviously a condiment bottle in my hand, then storms off, shouting, "Well, how was I supposed to know that?" As if I'm the asshole. I saw him stink-eyeing me over his shoulder as I left. Well friends, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, as always, I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more Reddit stories. So I'm out of here, have an awesome day, and I'll see you all next time.